Hey everyone, I just got the new Black Series wave in. I was really worried that I wasn't going to get these before I leave for my trip this weekend, so I was thrilled to see this show up on my doorstep today. Thank you to my friend in Hong Kong for sending these over. These took about 14 days to get here from when he shipped them, but I'm happy to have them in hand now. Greef Karga had to be shipped loose in order to meet the size requirements, so let's take a look at him first. This is his Mando Season 2 look. I did a custom of this a while ago, and I don't think anyone really asked for this figure. I really still think of Greef Karga in his Season 1 look as sort of the definitive look. This is a nicely sculpted figure though, I will say. I think the face looks pretty good. It does need a little bit of a matte spray, which I tend to do on almost all my figures now, so that's kind of to be expected. The interior of the coat being yellow looks really nice. There is some decent mobility on the arms, even with the coat on, although you're not really going to be posing him in too crazy of poses. Similar to the first Greef Karga figure, the cloak is sculpted around his holster, so it looks like it's kind of draped around there for easy access. So that's accurate to the show, and I think that actually looks really cool, and it just kind of lets you enjoy seeing the holster and the gun without it being covered by the robe. The gun I don't think we've seen before. This feels new to me. I'm not an expert on weapons, but I think this is a new sculpt for this figure. My Mandalorian shelf is already so full. We have like 27 figures just in the Galaxy line from this show, plus some in the Red Box line, and then I have a ton of customs as well and some more on the way, like the Dark Trooper. I just don't realistically see myself displaying this figure instead of the Season 1 version, and I don't have like a Mando Season 1 or Season 2 shelf. I don't know anyone that does, so I'm not really sure where this figure is going to fit in my collection. I still think this is a great looking figure overall. Let's take a look at it compared to the Season 1 Greef Karga. We do see a little bit of reuse, specifically the arms and I believe the legs. You can see the boots are the same. The one on the left is supposed to have some black stripes on his boots, so I might have to add those myself. I did do a matte spray on the one on the right, so you can see it's a little bit less shiny, although honestly I feel like it needs another one already. I feel like I've sprayed this one 10 times or something and it just always ends up shiny. But I think that's enough about Greef Karga for now. There are so many incredible figures in this wave that we just need to keep on moving. Let's move on to Axe Woves now. Really awesome artwork on the side here with the Razor Crest visible in the background, and a really incredible likeness to Simon Cassianides, who plays Axe Woves. This is a figure that we've been anticipating for a long time since getting Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves, and then when we got the Death Watch Mandalorian body, we had a pretty good feeling that we were going to be getting this figure on the same mold, which we have. First impressions, I feel like this looks a little bit more like Vincent Cassel, who is in Black Swan, than it does Simon, and we do get a little bit of a warped helmet here from the plastic packaging. This is actually the last wave, I believe, that is getting the plastic packaging, but all you have to do is drop this in hot water, and then you can just kind of stretch it out with your finger a little bit. You know, you shouldn't have to do this, but it isn't the biggest deal in the world. But that's what it looks like after it has been quote-unquote fixed. We do see a little bit of like a warping on the stripe on the helmet there. I don't know if that's accurate to the show or if it's not the way it's supposed to be printed, but I feel like his eyes on mine are printed just a little bit too high, especially that one on the left. It looks like it's kind of missing the mark a little bit there in terms of the printing. The actual body itself looks awesome. This is the Death Watch Mandalorian body. It is missing a little bit of paint details, like on the knee pads there and on the gauntlets there. I'm definitely looking forward to kind of weathering this up just a little bit and adding a little bit of metallic dry brushing and that sort of thing, like I did with Casca Reeves and Bo-Katan, which you will see a little bit later. The weapon is the same one that we got with Casca and Bo, but this has a different paint job, and I think this looks really nice. I wish the other ones had a little bit more of a paint job. They were just kind of that plain gray. I'm not sure if that's accurate to the show, but I think just a little bit of two-tone there makes such a difference. It makes it look kind of more like a finished figure. One critique I do have is that the helmet does tend to fit a little bit loosely, and it's good that it's not going to like scratch the face printing off or anything, because especially when you do a matte finish, you risk rubbing that off when putting a helmet on and off. I did that to my Fennec Shand. I kind of pulled off her eyebrow. Here is how it looks with the Death Watch Mando, but you can see the helmet is quite loose here, and so in order to get the helmet to sit right, it's not the same as like the Death Watch Mando where you can just kind of tweak the articulation around. But here is how they look side by side. You can see that there is a lot of reuse here. I'm not worried about that at all. I think it looks great, and this is exactly how reuse is supposed to be. They did fix the belt and the different little pieces that are unique to them, so that's really nice to see. And just for fun, here is a Death Watch Mando that I did some dry brushing and a dark wash on to make it look a little bit more metallic and realistic. I think it could still use a matte spray to kind of take down that sheen a little bit, because it isn't supposed to be so shiny, I don't think, but look how much Axe's helmet is bobbing as we're like moving it around. So here is Axe with Bo-Katan and Casca Reeves. This is obviously how most of us will be displaying them. You can see I did that sort of dry brushing and dark washing on the girls there to make their belts a little bit darker. And then this is a custom painted head by Uncle Sam's Cantina. He is one of the best painters on Instagram, along with the other ones that I usually mention on my channel, but I'm really happy to have the updated paint job for her because I think she looks amazing. I have a lot of thoughts and critiques on the next figure, so let's get right into that one. It is, of course, Grogu. I have been called a Hasbro shill and a Disney shill on my channel before for being so positive about most of my Black Series collection. This is not one that I am positive about. I think this is really kind of ridiculous to include this in a main line, and I definitely would not have bought this if I didn't have a channel in which I showed this kind of stuff off, but I thought it was important to show him in the packaging for those that were curious about getting this figure, but I don't know that I will be keeping this one for very long. I already have some Grogus that I love from other figure lines. It's important to remember when collecting that collectors make up a very small percentage of people that actually buy new figures in stores, and from what I've heard from people in the toy industry, it's more parents buying for birthday parties and kids walking through the aisles asking their parents to buy things that make up the majority of retail sales for Black Series and other action figures, even though it seems kind of hard to believe that people are ever going to stores and finding anything. But I'm having trouble imagining a casual fan dropping in to Target and spending $30 after tax on a tiny little Grogu figure like this. The lid actually does not fit on mine. I tried everything possible to try to see if I could get this on, and it just seems like the shape doesn't actually match. If I'm doing something wrong, please let me know in the comments. I love finding out how stupid I am. But we were also straight up promised an alternate closed eyes head at the Hasbro panel at San Diego Comic-Con, which I was at. I have a video of Jin saying that there's an alternate head that's going to be hidden somewhere in the package. So I looked everywhere. I checked inside the pram. There's nowhere for an alternate head to fit. They just straight up discontinued that without saying anything, so that's kind of a bummer as well. So this is a total flop for me. It's the first time that a mainline figure has really disappointed me this much in the last few years. So let's look at Grogu himself. This is, I'm fine with this sculpt. I think this looks great. If this had come in a build-up pack or something like that, this, obviously should just be an accessory to Mando, and I'm sure the Black Series team has been pressured to try to monopolize on Grogu's popularity as much as possible. He does feel a bit undersized to me. I think some of the Grogus that come with Mafex and Figuarts feel a little bit better. This is how he fits in the pram. This is fine, no complaints here. I do have a custom pram and Grogu that I got before the Black Series one even came out that I do prefer to this just by a little bit. He does have some accessories that no one really asked for, like the cookies and the necklace here. It's nice to finally get the necklace in the Black Series, and he also comes with the older accessories that came with the $10 one. I'm not really sure who this is for, but it is not for me. Now let's get back to the bangers in this wave. Aayla Secura is an incredible figure. I'm really happy to finally get this in the line. She was highly anticipated, announced quite a long time ago. Little bits of battle Geonosis up there with some clones running in the background, always very cool. We of course see the same artwork on the top here, little bits of the clones up there. Let's go ahead and get this opened up. When I open figures with lightsabers now, I use a box cutter to slice the tape that holds it on. That way when you're pulling the lightsaber out, you're not risking bending the peg that is in the hilt. Let's pop her out. I was pretty certain that we were going to get Aayla Secura as soon as I saw the Aura Singh figure announced, because it just seems too obvious to be able to use that body twice. I'm pretty happy with this figure. I think the blue color looks perfect. The face looks great. The eyes look a little cartoonish and beady, but otherwise not bad. The skirt is attached here with this little peg, which just helps it sit into place nicely, and so you're not constantly rotating it back to center. The legs are a little bit dated. They do have the double joints with the visible pins, which I don't love. It feels like a little bit of an older figure here. And I know some people complain about the hips, but I don't really have any big problems with those. Articulation on the head is great. I was happy to see that she can turn her head. If you remember like Kit Fisto and other figures with head tails, they just aren't as flexible as these, and you are really limited in your articulation on the head. I like having my figures kind of look left and right. Let's get the lightsaber into her hand. This lightsaber looks pretty shiny. I was happy to see that. I'm not gonna lie, when posing this figure, I did have a lot of issue with the ankles and just getting her to kind of stand up properly. I think I'm kind of understanding why people don't like these hips now, and the ankles I had were very loose, so that was kind of a bummer. These are, I think, the same boots and legs from Aurra Sing, but with a replaced heel and like the shoe itself on the bottom, so I think that's maybe why they don't fit as well, just because it was sort of retrofitted to the older legs. So here's the original Aurra Sing figure straight out of the package, and it looks like the legs and the top of the boots are the same. You can see Aayla Secura has more of a heel on her boot. The torsos are different. Aayla has the texture chest and the bare midriff, where Aurra Sing has the solid orange, and then the arms are different as well as the hands. So there's not as much reuse here as I was sort of expecting, but I'm pretty happy with both of these. I think that the Aurra Sing is a really fun figure and very underrated as well. But I know you want to see Aayla with Commander Bly, so let's take a look at what that looks like. These are going to be great to have on the Clone Wars shelf or on the prequels shelf. I don't have that big of a Clone Wars shelf, so I'm going to put them together on my Episode 2, Episode 3 shelf. Migs Mayfeld is a highly anticipated figure. This is the Migs that we were all expecting ever since Bill Burr showed up in Season 1. You can see on the artwork here on the box, they do have the prison ship from the Mando, I think Episode 5 or 6. I do have a 3D printable diorama of this on my Patreon if you were interested in downloading those files. But let's go ahead and get him out of the box now. I love the way that new Black Series sculpts feel in hand. This, you could tell it's a brand new sculpt. The way that the legs are, see how there are no pins in sight? It really makes a difference, I think, in how the figure moves, how it looks, how it feels. So it is always a treat to get a brand new sculpt in the line. He does come with 4 of the same pistol here. This is new, I think. I don't know that we've seen this before. He has 4 of them in 4 holsters, so these can go here, but I'm going to put the other 2 in his hands. I think that just makes sense. And then the articulation on the arms is actually pretty great. It goes up just past 90 or less than 90, as Mike Case pointed out in one of his videos. Same with the knees, those go to about 90. You're not really going to need, I don't think he ever did that in the show. I don't think he ever kicked his own butt. An old Billy Black series would not be complete without his backpack gun. This moves really nicely. It was really fun to move around. And the only thing is that the gun itself doesn't have any pan or tilt. There's no joint up at the top there, which probably makes for a much sturdier, long-lasting piece. So I'm not too worried about that, but you do have to just kind of basically get it pointing straight forward. But it looks cool as hell, just like in the show. The only thing is, yeah, you can't really have it right over his shoulder there and still pointing up, so you kind of have to have it at that exact position where I have it there. But it still looks great. You're just going to have to keep him a little bit of an angle in order to display that properly on your shelf. I'm fine with it. I think it looks great. Here is how it looks with some of the other characters from this episode, such as the New Republic security droid, Q90, and Mando with a custom helmet and cape. I do have a custom Migs Mayfeld and his casual Friday look from when they are leaving the Imperial bunker in Season 2. And then I also have one that was repainted by Tim's Toys, and it is just the Imperial disguise here with a custom painted head. It does need a little bit of a matte finish. I think the paint has gotten a little glossy over time, and I did some dry brushing on the armor as well. Hasbro knows what they're doing with repaints, and they released the one on the left as the first Migs Mayfeld figure because you go out and buy it because you don't know that you're getting the one in the middle, because if we had the one in the middle, the one on the left probably wouldn't have sold very well. But they are a business, they know what they're doing. Here is the Grand Inquisitor from Kenobi. This, of course, is the live-action look, not the animated one, as a lot of people would have liked. I honestly don't really care about live-action versus animation, but I do think that this is just kind of goofy character design. He looks like Megamind. Regardless of how he looks in the animated series, I think if I saw this character in any show, I'd kind of giggle a little bit. He does look a little silly, but the figure itself is an amazing representation of the live-action character. The soft goods cloak is really nice and drapes pretty nicely on there. Pretty decent articulation at the knees with the single joint as well as on the elbows. And then the rubber on the shoulders is actually quite soft, and on the chest plate as well, so you can get it into some poses here without it really getting in the way. And then he has his cute little Inquisitor pin right there. He was so happy when he got that back from Reva. That was so sweet. Anyway, let's take a look at the lightsaber here. This is a new sculpt for the Inquisitor, so it's not the same one that we saw with Reva or with the fifth brother. It has the double pegs here, which clip onto his back, and then he can fly away with his backpack lightsaber to go collect pins. Once you put the lightsaber in the hand, it fits great. Those pegs don't get in the way, at least not for me, and so I have no complaints about that engineering there. So that is it for the Grand Inquisitor. Let's take a look at him with some of his pals here. Here he is next to Reva and the fifth brother. They all look awesome together. The colors and the materials used are very similar, if not identical, so that just keeps everything looking very cohesive. I do want to quickly show you the custom hand that I did on the fifth brother. This is just 3D printed and painted black. Just the open grip hand just looks a lot more natural than that like C grip hand that we see on a lot of Black Series figures. And now the reason you clicked on this video, Clone Wars Maul, probably one of the most anticipated figures of all time in the Black Series. We see him in the artwork here with his throne, which is very cool. I need to create another 3D printed throne now that this is finally in my hands after all these years. In hand, he feels absolutely perfect. This is definitely one of my favorite Black Series figures of the last few years. Everything just looks exactly like it should, and it's just sculpted perfectly. I'm really curious on who the sculptor of this figure is. It feels like this one guy that I follow on Instagram, who is definitely the best Black Series sculptor. Everything he does is amazing. I had a little bit of a frozen ankle here, but that would just cracked apart pretty easily and loosened up. Just playing with the articulation on the knees here. We have a little swivel on the knee as well as on the thigh, which was cool to see. And then the torso piece has the robe sculpted over the bare chest, which is kind of cool. It just gives a little bit better articulation and looks a little bit cleaner than just having them as one piece. Comparing this to the shirtless Maul that we got a few months ago, this just already, as soon as I pulled it out, it felt really dated. You could see the legs have those double pins again, those double jointed legs that are from, I think, 2013 when the first Darth Maul was released, which is pretty crazy. But this is another example of Hasbro releasing the repaint before the actual figure, so I think if we had this Clone Wars Maul in hand, a lot of people probably would have passed on the shirtless Maul, but that was a pretty hot ticket when it came out because we were so desperate for this version of Maul that I have right here. So thank you to Hasbro for finally getting this into the line. The lightsabers are the same kind of shiny paint that we see in Aayla Secura's lightsaber. I just heard that the bottom one here was actually an unused asset from an Asajj Ventress arc that was never actually used in the Clone Wars, so that's pretty cool to hear. It does snap together pretty nicely. They feel pretty strong. I'm not too worried about breaking anything here. The grip is a little bit loose on the lightsaber, but nothing that we can't work with. Getting him into a pose here, we'll see how this works. To be honest, I did have a little bit of difficulty posing him and working with the ankles here, but I think it was more just my inability to decide on how I wanted to pose him. And yeah, I just wasn't really sure what I was going for here. I think once I get Ahsoka in here and just kind of set him up to actually be fighting her, we'll have a better pose than what we have here. But this is what he looks like next to Ahsoka. He's squatted a little bit, but you can see she is quite tall compared to him. And here's a custom Clone Wars Anakin with a head from Nuno, and then a paint job by me to make that blue armor a little bit more graphite, kind of like it looks in the Hot Toys version. The ankles were giving me a little bit of issue here. I think I just need to kind of loosen them up a little bit and play with them a little bit more to just figure them out a little bit. But I'm pretty oh, okay. Yeah, we'll have to see about that. Well, anyway, that is the new Black Series wave. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about these. I want to hear which ones you'll be picking up. Curious what you think about that Grogu. We are always getting new Black Series here on the channel, so please stay tuned for more reviews. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.